This is Wildcat Country.
Larson tipped it. Love has it. Lewis slams it, and Arizona wins it.
The inside scoop on the Arizona Wildcats.
It's Gunnar Maldonado. He's got blockers. Touchdown, Arizona.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to bear down.
Welcome to another edition of Wildcat Country presented by Harrah's Auction Casino. Eric Cohen, Shane Dale, and special guest Blair Willis joining us for an important edition of the show. Listen, things are not great right now. As good as they were last year, Shane, they stink right now. You got whooped by your rival. Your rival is going to the conference championship game and probably the college football playoff. Their basketball team is ranked ahead of yours. It is a total and utter disaster.
Yeah, I've taken this off my precious here off the back shelf and replaced it with a Sean Elliott card you'll see in the background here, because it just doesn't feel right to have it in the background when they don't have the cup. But we knew this was going to happen. And look, Eric, like we talked about before we started recording, we restarted the show in 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, and things were bad then. I mean, bad, as Blair just mentioned before we started, we're obviously worse overall for the entire world, but for U of Athletics, it was also pretty bad. And it's bad now. Maybe not as bad. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but the 4 words I always say: savor the good times, because you just never know. And I didn't expect them to end this quickly, even as cynical as I am. But it's tough sledding, and the good news is we always have something to talk about, whether we're celebrating or commiserating or both.
Blair, you had mentioned, well, first of all, thanks for joining Shane and I, as always.
Yes, thank you.
You had mentioned that you had to stay until the end of the game on Saturday. I'll be honest, this was the first game I had left at halftime since 2003, when Arizona played, I think it was USC and LSU, who went on to split the national championship. I left both of those games at halftime. I did the same thing because there was no need at 35-0 to stay. Just your thoughts from above or wherever you were sitting, your thoughts on the crowd, and were you disappointed in Arizona fans? Okay with it? Just your thoughts on the atmosphere on Saturday.
Yeah, well, I mean, first off, thanks for having me, guys. I wish it was in better situation for all of our for football, basketball, everything in between right now. But no, Eric, I was like I do at all the home games. I help out on the official stat crew for football, so I'm up in the press box, kind of in the friendly or not so friendly confines, however you want to look at that. So pretty isolated from the crowd. But walking in on game day, I actually was kind of impressed with the Arizona turnout. I mean, it's been a bleak end of the season, a lot of hot hope coming in, but it just hasn't been a good run these last 2 months. And so I thought we'd see a lot of maroon, a lot of gold in that stadium, and they had a nice turnout. Maybe not as much as I expected, but there was more red than I thought. So I actually give the Wildcat fans a good shout out for showing up, and it was a much more respectable turnout, I thought, for what has been an otherwise just disappointing season. So that's one just small little good thing we had on an otherwise really, really poor day.
Well, we have a lot to talk about here on this episode. We're going to talk football in the first segment. We're going to talk some basketball and other things in the second segment. And then we're going to make picks for some of the conference championship games in the third segment. But as always, this first segment is brought to you by our friends at Ice Shaker. Go to iceshaker.com, use promo code Wildcat Country, capital W, capital C, and get $5 off your first purchase. All right. And make sure to fill out the post-purchase survey after you do that. We are grateful to have Ice Shaker as our sponsor for quite a while. So always grateful to Chris Gronkowski and crew. All right, Shane, I'm going to start with you. Keeping Brent Brennan was the right move. Desiree Reed-Francois, buy or sell?
Yeah, I've gone back and forth on this a lot. And I honestly was not expecting Brent Brennan to still be the head coach today. We're recording this Monday night. Halfway through the ASU game, I was thinking he was gone. But thinking about the reasoning behind it, I will reluctantly buy for now. A couple thoughts, just bear with me about this and what I'm guessing Desiree Reed-Francois' reasoning is. I think if Arizona was in better shape financially and she had someone in mind for the job who Arizona could likely afford and turn the program into a winner, she probably would have pulled the trigger and gone in a different direction. But I think she expects Arizona to be in a better financial position in a year. And that includes with private donors. And at that time, if Arizona has another losing season, the athletic department will be in a better position to afford a coach who can turn Arizona back into a winning program and potentially compete with other schools who might try to lure that coach away. The other element of this, I think, is DRF. I'm just going to call her that for the sake of simplicity. DRF has seen this movie before. She came to Missouri in 2021, the year after Eli Drinkwitz was named the head football coach there. In her first 2 years at Missouri, the football team under Drinkwitz went 6-7 each year. And he was reportedly on the hot seat, especially because he was not hired by DRF like Brent Brennan. But she stayed the course. Missouri won 11 games last year and has 9 wins this year. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but patience did pay off in that case. So again, if Arizona were in a bit better financial situation and she had a name in mind who she could get and not just someone to settle for, but someone who was really she thought could really take the program to another level, she might have made a different decision because the team really wasn't that bad this year. And despite of all the injuries, the program should have been more competitive. In fact, I'd argue the 2021 team that had far less talent than this team was more competitive and competent on a weekly basis than this team was. So look, the good news is you have a coach who can build relationships with players. We've already seen that, right? With the guys he convinced to stay at Arizona, which unfortunately has been his crowning achievement to this point. So you take a guy like that who will likely be able to pull some decent guys from the portal. I think he will. And you put him with a better staff, and DRF hinted heavily, and Michael left story in the Daily Star that there's going to be some changes, including she hinted at some changes with the strength and conditioning team. Maybe with all that, you'll see some improvement next year. And if that doesn't happen, I fully expect her to make a move then. But for now, I understand her decision for the reasons I just laid out, financially and otherwise.
All right, Blair, same question for you. If this is the right move to keep Brent Brennan after one season, buy or sell?
Yeah, I mean, it very similar to what Shane said. I'll definitely say I think it's the right move from the standpoint of it just doesn't make a lot of financial sense when you're there's very few schools actually in the country that you would be in a position financially to really make a move right now, because you're looking anywhere based on numbers of 20 to 30 million just to kind of sever ties right now. And then you're still talking about, and that's just with Brennan's staff, and then you're going to have to hire a new staff, of the same, the same value, or probably the price has gone up, one more year into college football on what the new staff would cost. So, I mean, you're almost talking about just throwing away a lot of money to make a change that isn't guaranteed to necessarily produce any better results next year or the year after that. And there's a lot of other big picture things that are happening in college football, college athletics, that you have to take into consideration for the financial part of it. And, a big chunk of that's going to be the revenue sharing with college athletes. We don't know what that's going to look like. The House case won't be finalized until the spring. And so you've got a recruiting period that's starting this week, a transfer portal period that starts next week, of which programs are trying to bring players in, trying to solidify rosters. But I don't know what anybody's telling these players in terms of what you're going to get, whether that's at Arizona, if it's at Oregon, Ohio State, Texas. I mean, these recruiting departments and player personnel departments are really kind of in limbo. It's going to be a very chaotic month. And I think, again, from the team standpoint, I think if you throw a wrench and make a coaching change now, I don't know what you're telling a new coach coming in, what you're going to be able to recruit players to here. Like, what's that budget look like? What's Arizona's revenue sharing going to look like for players? What is our, NIL collective look like? There's so many moving parts around the sport, let alone the moving parts we have here in all of our frustrations that were bottled up. When you talk about that $20 million to $30 million buyout, it's just not really worth it. And it's 1 year. I mean, it's 1 year. If all of us went back to last January when Jed left, I remember where I was the day it went official that he was going to Washington. My heart kind of sunk, because to me it was like, we're going right back to 2020. We're going right back to 2021, where we don't have talent. There's really no end in sight of this losing streak. And then what did we do? 2 days later, 48 hours later, we brought Brent Brennan in. He was able to forge these relationships that Shane talked about with our current roster and keep a skeleton of it together. I mean, we really had a good core, with Jacob Manu on defense, Gunner, Traden Stukes, all those guys on defense, plus obviously T-Mac and Noah leading the charge on offense. So we kept this framework, and it gave us optimism that we could kind of, keep our head above water instead of going all the way back down to the bottom. And I know it sort of feels like rock bottom now with the way some of these games we played the last month or two of the season, kind of went. But we're not quite at the depths of where we were a couple of years ago or a few years ago. And I do fear that if you throw $20 or $30 million in the tank to make a coaching change, you lose any stability and any connectivity we have with the current players in the program, with no guarantee that you're going to get anybody better that's going to be able to give you a roster for the next couple of years that's going to be able to compete better than what we can build with going forward with what we have. So it's just a prudent decision financially. Give it one more year, see what it looks like. As Shane said, you can always cut ties next year if it doesn't work out any better, and you're in a little bit better financial situation for the next era.
All right, but and I hear what both of you said, and I think both of you made good points. Here's why I'm selling that this was a good decision. I like Brent Brennan. He's a good human being. He's a good guy. I had been wrong about Brent Brennan. I loved the hire, Shane, and I wanted him in 2020. I kept saying, all right, let's trust the process. There was no plan. And I understand the injuries played a part in it. But as a fan, why do you want to pay to support? I mean, obviously it's your university, and we're still going to go to games. Not like I'm boycotting or anything like that. But, and we'll talk about this, like my season tickets, I don't want to renew those. I don't, as far as I'm concerned, like this team, I don't want to drive down late at night to go support a team that is going nowhere with no plan. I hope I'm wrong, and maybe I'll be eating my words at times throughout the offseason. But I look at this roster and I go, how in the heck is the roster next year going to be any better than what we saw this year? And probably worse, because you lose a top 10 pick in T-Mac, you're going to lose Takario Davis, you're going to lose Savigny, and those are three potential first-round picks. How does your roster get better? I don't see it. I think at some point you just got to cut bait. The rumor is that she had the money, and if so, I think she should have cut bait. Go ahead, Shane.
No, I was just going to say, Eric, I feel like I'm trying to spin this because I've defended Brent Brennan for a long time, and I got a lot of crap on it on social media, and I have no problem getting crap on social media about it if I think I'm right, but I'm starting to come around to where a lot of fans are. I try not to have knee-jerk reactions, but this has just been bad. I agree with you on that 100%. I think the way I choose to look at it, since he is going to be back, is if you can have a relationships guy like Brent Brennan, and Dick Tomey was that guy too. Remember his famous saying, "Football isn't complicated, people are." I think Brent Brennan gets that, and I think he takes it to heart. So I get that. If you can be that guy, and then he can bring in, because look, the players, they see the assistant coaches more than they see the head coach. They work with them every day. They work with the strength and conditioning guys every day. And that's, to me, as important, if not more important than the head coach himself. You can bring in you open your pocketbook enough to bring in some top coordinators, some top assistants, revamp the strength and conditioning staff, because I think that might have been the biggest loss of all was Tyler Owens. Of all the people, all the staff that went to Washington with Jed, that was probably the biggest. If you can make all that work, then I think you can have a foundation for success as a coaching staff. I'm just saying, I don't know if that's going to, and I want to say this, Eric, I don't know if I even believe that. I'm just trying to say, look, I'd rather be positive about it because this is our reality, whether we like it or not. And I could see that being one possible path to success.
Blair, if you're an assistant coach that's out there and you have a current job at another university and feel fairly secure, why are you going to leave that to come to Arizona? I mean, sell me on why would you leave a secure situation other than getting paid, double your salary in a guaranteed contract? Because you know that Brent Brennan is basically on a 1-year deal, and if he flops, he's gone. If they don't win 6 games next year, maybe he's probably gone, right? So how do you sell that to those assistant coaches?
Well, I think just any assistant looking to move up, like if you're looking, obviously no one's going to drop down from a high level Power 4 school to come down here to be offensive coordinator. lateral move's probably not a good situation for either one. So you're probably looking at either a group of 5, group of 6 type offensive coordinator moving up, or maybe even a high FCS level offensive coordinator being the one that would move up and come over. So it's an opportunity for them to grow, advance in their career, kind of take that next step, probably make a little bit more money. But the other part of it too, I mean, the reason you might do it is because, I mean, we average like 16 points a game. Like you take out that New Mexico game, and our scoring offense was terrible. We didn't rush for more than 4 yards per carry in like the last 6 or 7 games of the season. I mean, so you're going to come in here and look like a genius if you can just get Arizona scoring 24 points a game or 25 points a game next year. And then your value goes up even higher. I'm reminded, we're going back a little bit in football, but you go back to the decades in football, but Mike Stoops' tenure here, he made a coaching change at offensive coordinator after his 3rd season. And Mike Canales was fired, and he brought in Sonny Dykes. And Sonny Dykes was coming over from Texas Tech, where he was pretty much the passing game coordinator. Mike Leach was obviously the offensive guru of that offense. But Sonny came over, stepped up, and we went from averaging about 16 points a game to 25 or 26 points per game in his first year to averaging 38, a school record number of points by his 2nd season. So coordinators see opportunity for growth, especially when the floor is pretty low, and the bar is very low, and there's an opportunity to come in here and make a real impact.
I certainly hope you're right. I'm very jaded by what I saw. Like Saturday was inexcusable on so many levels. This was, over the last 2 weeks, Arizona has given up 98 points. I mean, there is I understand the injuries, but you have an offense that scored a combined 35. You got outscored, 98 to 35 in 2 weeks, and lost at home to your rival. How do you sell, Shane? Yeah. How do you sell the fan base on things are going to get better? You should buy tickets to go watch a team that just gave up, this many 98 points and got creamed by your rival.
You don't. That's a simple answer. You don't. And Brent Brennan even said it after his press conference. He was absolutely right. Is that he said, "Look, there's nothing I can do to change anyone's mind until we play another game." He's right. There's nothing that can be done. He's even if he has a great recruiting class and a great a lot of great additions in the transfer portal. And again, I think he'll do well in those areas. People are still going to think he can't coach. It's like, well, who cares? We squandered a bunch of talent this year. Well, maybe makes anyone think it's going to be better next year. There's nothing that he can do about it. The only way you're going to get butts and seats is what I've always said, is by winning football games. Am I confident he's going to be able to do that? Not really, but it's what we got. And I think if he's more the, Jed Fish was more like, he was the play caller. He was a lot more involved, like in everyone's face sort of thing, in a good way. And Brent Brennan, he might not be that kind of guy. He doesn't seem like that kind of guy, and he doesn't necessarily have to be. But you got to get better coaches in there. And like Blair said, the assistant coach, bringing a new offensive coordinator, and bringing in the spread offense, that changed everything for Arizona on the offensive side of the ball. And I'm sure Brent Brennan learned a lot, whether he wanted to or not, in his first year at a power school. And so I'm optimistic that certain things will change for the better. But as far as selling fans, no, and for people who don't know, Eric, you've been a season ticket holder for a long time. And I'm sure that there's probably like 20,000, 25,000 season ticket holders who've been loyal for that long or more. Maybe even less than that who have held them as long as you
probably
have.
Probably
less
18
than
years.
But I'm saying, but like 25,000 fans who will be there regardless. Okay. But I think I've seen a lot of that on social media. People are like, do I really want to, watch this team right now? I think Barrett Baker, he had sold it really well last week. You go out there to support the student athletes, win or lose. But again, there is nothing that the proof is in the pudding. The proof is wins and losses. That's all it comes down to in sports and college football. And there is nothing that Brent Brennan can do, I think, to change anyone's mind until Arizona takes the field and they look like a different team than what they looked like this year.
All right. So Blair,
if you don't mind, if I could just follow up on, because there's one point that, to answer your question, Eric, I don't know. You can't sell tickets because we couldn't sell tickets this year either. There was a little bit of an uptick in season ticket sales over the year before, but not like a huge boom. When you have ASU on the schedule, you always see a little bit higher season ticket, in the years that ASU's on the schedule. We were 3-1 coming off a win over, at that time, about a top 10 Utah team in September. We're 1-0 in the Big 12. We're going to have our first ever Big 12 home game. We have a 2-0 Big 12 Texas Tech coming to Tucson back there in October. And what did we have, 40,000 people at the game? Announced attendance was 45, maybe 40,000 actual people in that stadium. That, to me, of the entire season was the most deflating point, because we didn't play a very good football game. We should have been better than Texas Tech. We weren't. We fought pretty hard in the fourth quarter to get back in that game, or in the second half, and we had a chance to win. We had the lead in the fourth quarter. Texas Tech hit one big play, kicked a field goal to go ahead. We're going to go ahead and go back down and maybe win the game at the end. And T-Mac had, one of his only 4 plays of his whole career, fumbling after a big game to start that drive.
Yeah.
And when we ended up losing that game. But to me, it wasn't the loss, because, it's still so early in the season. You're still 1-1. All I'm thinking is, these are the games in the Big 12 you have to win. You have to win these games at home, and you have to do it because you've got a sold-out stadium that makes it hard on the opponent.
Yeah.
There was no reason to not be at least 48,000 people for that game. And so, back to your current question, in the current state of affairs, 2 months later, I don't know how you sell tickets. We have to find a way to make Arizona Stadium a place people want to go to, because for many years now, it has not been a place people want to go to.
And it's a great point. Now, I'm somebody that's had season tickets since 2006. I have been to all but 2 games since then, minus 2020. Now, I also live 2+ hours away. And so driving down a lot of these late starts, and, as I'm getting older, I'm in my early 40s, it was not as easy to, not as fun to do the drive and get home at 2 in the morning, not going to lie. And also finding friends to want to, sacrifice a whole day to go. Now, if I lived in Tucson, 100% I'm going to all the games. I will tell you that. But living up here and trying to go to all the games, I'm still going to go to Arizona football games next year. I don't care if they're 0 and whatever. I'm just going to be selective about the games that I buy. And by buying season tickets, as far as I'm concerned, what does that give me in terms of, I can't sell them. I can't give them away, because you can't even give away tickets at this point. So, Blair, do you fault me for the logic of, I won't buy season tickets because those tickets they're going to go unused and a waste. I'd rather just buy single games and target the ones that I want to go to. Yay or nay on that?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I'm of a different perspective now in my life too. I've got a wife and 2 young kids, a 2-year-old and a 7.5-year-old stepson. It's not a family-friendly venue. When you do get a day game or an evening game, the night games are either too late for kids, or the day games, it's just not family-friendly. Half the stadium, the restrooms, the concessions, it's just not an accessible stadium. It needs more space. It needs more room to move about. It needs to be easier to get to. Not necessarily with parking. Parking's not an issue, but there needs to be public transportation that helps get you to the vicinity of the stadium. Tailgating and live entertainment on campus needs to be more accessible. I go back to when I was still working back with Coach Rich Rodriguez. We're going back 6, 7, 8 years. I remember walking off our practice field back over to Arizona Stadium after a practice, and he and I were having a conversation about Bear Down Field, which is just north of Arizona Stadium. Mm-hmm. And Coach Rodriguez called it the biggest waste of space, on a college football campus, because we don't use it for anything. It's not athletics' field. It's campus recreation's field. And on game day, you've got this prime real estate, which, 10 plus years ago used to be called Fan Fiesta. And it was great. You could buy a $20 ticket or whatever, get in there, you get food, drinks, live music, all this stuff. It was a happening place. What it was this year, it hosted recruits, football recruits, and it hosted the NIL collectives. Otherwise, you were talking about 100 people on this, field that could host thousands of people as they're matriculating towards the stadium on game day to create an atmosphere and a buzz. It just doesn't exist anymore. We've never had a great football tradition of like what game day is at Arizona Stadium compared to other places I've been. But what we had, say, 10, 12 years ago was still a lot better and more inviting for people to come down to the stadium than it is today. And our stadium is 10 plus years older now. So from a facility and amenity standpoint, it's in serious need of upgrade. So if you want to sell high priced tickets and raise ticket prices and bring people like you, Eric, down to game 7 times a season, there needs to be an investment there too. Otherwise, what are we doing? So again, it gets back to what's your best use of the 20 to $30 million to fire a coaching staff? We got to figure out where to stretch our money because we don't have a lot of it. So we got to be real smart of where we invest it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. It's a very, very good point. And one thing I didn't think about, I mean, I walked by Bear Down Field the other day and it's mostly empty. I mean, you're right. There's a tent for recruits or NIL collective or whoever. I don't even know who that is. I mean, I haven't been on that field since I was, a few years ago when they had the tailgate thing. And then, I mean, that was kind of cool. And they moved that into the dome thing, or whatever the practice structure. So Shane, I know you're not a marketing guy per se. But I'm going to put you on the spot here. You're the Arizona marketing department. What's your pitch to sell tickets as of right now for next year? I mean, how do you get 30,000 people in that stadium?
Well, my first question is, does Arizona really have a marketing department right now? I don't. There's been a lot of turnover there. Other than, I mean, like you said, if you can't even give away tickets, Blair, I know you were giving away some tickets on Saturday. Were you able to give them away?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, good. Okay, so that's a start. So we know these free tickets could still be. Yeah. Beyond that, I mean, I don't know, and it baffles me because I understand Arizona's a basketball first school and really has been since a few years into Lou Olson's tenure, but Arizona used to. I mean, I even just watching the games on TV from the Valley because I grew up in the Valley. It always seemed like on TV, Arizona had loud raucous football stadiums. This is back in the 80s, early 90s, mid 90s. And I don't know why that's changed. I know the program's been up and down, but it's always been up and down, right? It hasn't been. I mean, you want to compare to ASU since the Frank Kush era, ASU more often than not has had a better football program. So I don't know what's changed. Tucson's population has grown, not as much as Phoenix, but it's grown, and we can't find a way to fill that stadium, even like when Blair said, when the team's doing well. So I don't know. I'm thankful I don't get paid to figure that out.
I'll tell you why, Shane. I'll give you a reason.
Yeah.
Ticket prices. I mean, ASU they condensed their stadium by 20,000 people because they knew they weren't going to fill a 70-some thousand seat stadium like they used to have.
Yeah, but think about it, Eric. Do you think that even if Arizona had made all tickets free, for example, for the Houston game, do you think that it would have sold out or been close to it? I don't know.
TV times are worse too. I mean, the TV over the last 15 years or so, you beforehand, like when we were in school, Shane, you could basically schedule a game. If you weren't going to be on one of the major networks, you can schedule a game whenever you want, right? At 4 o'clock or whatever, great. Now you're seeing these 8:15 starts that ESPN or, Fox mandates. I mean, we didn't have that 20 years ago. So I think that's part of it. And I think why are you going to pay $75 a ticket or more for a better seat?
Yeah.
At that time of day, nobody in their right mind wants to do that.
And I think it's that plus a combination of that plus what Blair mentioned as far as just a game day experience is kind of if you're sitting in most of the stadium, you're still sitting on those aluminum slabs. You got the restrooms, you still got the troughs in there. I mean, it feels like a very old stadium because guess what? It is a very old stadium. And I don't look, if you have passionate fans, that shouldn't matter. But and if you have a program like Arizona's that has some tradition, but not as much as some other programs, and football isn't even the most popular sport on campus, it's very difficult to find a way to fill out stadium unless you win. And even then, sometimes it's tough. And there's a lot of reasons for that. Yeah.
Last question for this segment, Blair, I'll start with you here. As far as how you feel about the state of the program, I think all of us are depressed about it. Take out 2020 because that was a COVID year and we weren't in the stands. Most of us were not in the stands. Can you remember a time when the fan base and you or me or Shane has been so disillusioned with the football program other than that 2020 time?
Well, I mean, I don't know if we were already live, Eric, or if you were talking about it beforehand, but the Maccabic years.
Yeah.
You were there in 2003 for those LSU and Oregon games, and I think we even played USC back when they were still good. I mean, those were games you were truly showing up, and you were there to see the other team. I mean, you were to see Joey Harrington or whoever it was that was coming, from the other team. I don't. To me, it doesn't feel as dire as that right now. I mean, I was coming out of high school or maybe a freshman in college at that point myself. I remember what that was like. I mean, we had Clay Hart, and he was going to hit somebody hard and might knock himself out on a hit, but that was like about the highlight we were going to have. unless Mike Bell broke off a big run. I mean, there just wasn't a lot of hope. Like, hey, if we do this and if we do that, and if a ball bounces our way and we get this call, maybe we'll pull off a win. I mean, those were dire times, as was 2020, 2021. Those years were really tough. So I don't think it's quite that bad. I think maybe to sum up a couple of things we've talked about, I'll go back to, what did Brent Brennan do right his first year? What did he do wrong? I think what he did right, he retained the players. And it gave us a chance. Instead of being a team that was going to be 1-11 or 2-10, we went into the season feeling like we were going to, be a good team. We didn't become a good team, but at least we had that sense. We retained enough of a core that gave us that chance. What did he do wrong, though? And maybe why did we not have a good season? He made a terrible misjudgment on his offensive staff, and in particular his offensive coordinator. I questioned it at the time. I think we talked about it on here with Dino Babers. I mean, Dino hadn't called plays himself in 20 years. Sure, he'd been a head coach and he'd been involved in the offensive side of the ball, but it seemed far-fetched that he was the right person or the best person available for Brent to bring in here. And for some reason, Brent even kind of overlooked him, for who his offensive coordinator had been at San Jose State. So that was just a big miscalculation. I think if we were going to have a chance to win 6, 8, 9 games this year, it was going to be because we had a really good offense that could score a lot of points. And I mean, it was slow sputtering out of the gates and just got worse as the thing went on. And that's where I think to Shane's point, in 2021, Jed's first year, we were not very good, and we had less talent, on that team probably than this roster. But that team got a little bit better, and you could tangibly see it get better late in the season. I was hoping even going into November that we would see this offense start to get a little bit better, and it just didn't these last few weeks. So pretty bad situation, and I'll put my support behind Coach Brennan that, hey, go get it right this time, and we'll see what 2025 has for us.
Shane, simple yes or no. Is this Machiavickian in terms of fan support right now?
I think it's close. Yeah. I remember being in the Daily Wildcat newsroom when listening to Jim Livengood's press conference announcing his dismissal, and that was like the highlight of the year. I mean,
yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. And Mike Hankwitz comes in, and I mean, he didn't have much to work with either. So I think so. I do remember Arizona won a game late that year, and the fans, I think it was Washington, and the fans stormed the field because they finally won a game, kind of like they did against Cal in 2021. But yeah, I think again the frustration might be even deeper because we had a taste of success. We had that taste, and it was just snatched from us, and it looked like
plus
it might
your
not
rival,
be.
Shane. And plus your rival has flipped it and is dominating.
I think that's as big as anything, is Wildcat fans want to admit it or not. We felt like we're ahead of them, and we're never going to give it back. We're not going to give it back for a long time, not just in football, but in a lot of other sports. And now ASU's going to the Big 12 championship game. Basketball team looks decent. Their hockey team is beating number 1 teams. We don't even have a D1 hockey team. And so now I think there's always those comparisons, and it's one of the things that makes the rivalry great. But even without that, I think like we talked about, the only thing worse than anger is apathy, and I think that fans are going to be apathetic regardless of what happens this season until they start winning again.
Coming up next, let's talk a little basketball. Maybe that'll be a little bit better, and a few hypotheticals that I have for you guys here on Wildcat Country.
When you're on the golf course and it's 100 degrees outside, you know what's great? The ice shaker, which keeps your water cold.
You heard the man. Get your custom Arizona Wildcats ice shaker now at iceshaker.com.
As always, Wildcat Country is brought to you by Harrah's Auction Casino, who, by the way, Harrah's Auction Casino is celebrating 30 years as Arizona's home for Caesars Rewards, the only card that gets you to Vegas, New Orleans, and beyond. Where else in the Valley can you earn Caesars Rewards that can be redeemed for hotel stays, dining, and more 50 destinations across the country? Sign up locally at Harrah's Auction Casino. Play and earn rewards from coast to coast. Caesars Rewards, the only card that gets you there. All right, let's talk a little basketball. We didn't even do that in the first segment. Arizona went to the Bahamas. And it was slightly better, Shane, than what we saw.
They won a game.
They
won a game this time. Yeah.
They should never go back to the Bahamas again, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you just like UConn and Maui just say we're never coming back here. Yeah. Bahamas, very nice place. Don't go back there. All right, Shane, let's start with this one. I'm gonna go with you here. buy or sell, we should we should feel concerned, like serious concern that Arizona, if this keeps up, can miss the NCAA tournament. Serious concern.
Sure. Yeah. I don't think they're going to, but yes, I think it's fair to be concerned. Look, I still think I still think this team has a lot of talent and probably more depth than any of Tommy Lloyd's previous teams at Arizona. That doesn't guarantee they're going to put it all together. We've seen other Arizona teams pre-Tommy Lloyd have some early season struggles and then go on to finish the regular season strong and make a tournament run. But definitely cause for concern. I mean, we saw what we saw in against Davidson. I tweeted it after the time after the game and said, "This is Tommy Lloyd basketball," and then we didn't see it again the rest of the tournament. He had never lost consecutive games at Arizona, and now it's happened twice in the last 3 weeks. So that's different and not good. I still tend to think, and keep in mind, I'm a bigger cynic than probably 90% of Arizona fans out there. Okay. I know they've got a lot of cynical fans. I still think this team is too talented not to figure things out. My biggest long-term concern is the closeout defense. They are 270th out of all 364 Division I teams in three-point shooting defense. And I think we have a big enough sample size now to suggest that's a real problem. I still think Arizona's going to make the tournament, but I'll put it this way. If Arizona's going to actually make a deep run in this tournament, not just get there, but actually win some games, it'll likely be as a lower seed that happens to get hot at the right time, which we've seen happen with other teams. And that's entirely possible. They have a lot of kinks to work out before we even have that discussion. But fortunately, they still have plenty of time to do that and plenty of big tests that they have a chance to overcome.
Blair, I am really concerned that this team maybe I'm just jaded because of football, but I'm concerned they're not going to figure it out. And we're going to be talking about Arizona being a bubble team or worse come March. Am I crazy or is this legit?
Well, I'm not sounding the alarms yet, but it's not too far-fetched to be in the situation in a couple months if the team doesn't get better. They're an average team right now. I mean, we have to admit we've played a pretty good schedule. The teams we've lost to are pretty good teams. I mean, they're bubble type teams or NCAA tournament quality teams, like certainly Duke is. Wisconsin's got a really good offense right now. They're undefeated. They're one of the longest win streaks in the country, if not the longest right now. So we've played good opponents, and we just haven't been good enough to beat them. The only way you do that is you get better. And we've got we're going to play one game in the next 2 weeks. So there's a lot of time to get back to practice and get better. I think Shane mentioned, his concern being on the defensive side of the ball, defending the 3-point line. I agree with that. That's a concern. I think that can be addressed and worked on. I also pointed to the most simple fundamental in basketball, just shooting the basketball. We don't make open 3-point shots, and we miss too many shots around the rim. We're an incredibly inefficient team. We're getting good shots, I feel like, offensively, but we're not doing a good enough job making 3-pointers like our opponents are, and we're not finishing at the rim as high of a level as we should. What gives me, something of comfort, again, is the fact that it's this early in the season. We've played pretty good competition, so the challenge is real. We're not losing to teams that are in like the 200s of Ken Pom and things like that. I mean, we're playing top 50, top 100 type teams. What's been our problem in the NCAA tournament, whether it was 2 years ago in the first round exit, the Sweet 16 against Clemson? Much of the same things we're struggling with now. We don't make the shots that we need to make offensively, and then we give up too many easy shots like Shane was talking about. I think for this team to go through these lessons now is going to help it in Big 12 play, and Big 12 play will help it for the NCAA tournament if it can improve and get to the tournament. There's no more coasting through a regular season going 30-3 and then getting that number 1 seed. Like, we're not in the Pac-12 anymore. Like we're playing big boy basketball every week. We've got a big time non-conference schedule we've been playing here recently. So we're taking our lumps now. Do we learn our lessons? And does it start to, do the results follow? That's what we're going to see in December. I think we'll have a pretty good idea about our team by the end of December when we start Big 12 play there right after the Christmas holiday.
So the Wildcats play the Southern Utah Thunderbirds, who are 7-2. However, they lost to UCLA 88-43. Arizona better beat them by 30. That's what I want to see, that this team is back. Kind of like Shane talked about Davidson. We were all encouraged, and they go out the next night, and you lose to Oklahoma, and you're like, what? And then they lose to West Virginia, and you're like, uh-oh. Now, and they're just not guarding. the problem is that guys are not getting better. Like Krivas is not better. KJ Lewis is not better. It's like what we saw in football. Like you see Noah Fafita come on last year and you're like, oh my gosh, this guy's great. And then it gets worse. And then you look at Krivas and Vesar and KJ Lewis, second year basically for all of them, and they're not better.
I think the UCLA game is going to be massive, assuming they beat Southern. I think that is I hate the term get right game, but I feel like it kind of is, because you're going to have, maybe not as many fans as you did for the Alabama game last year, because they're not as good, but I'm sure it'll be a partisan Arizona crowd in Phoenix, and UCLA is a better team than they were last year, even though Arizona always seems to struggle against them regardless of their record. That's, a rivalry thing. But I think that's a massive game. If they're able to find a way to win that game, I think it's a big confidence booster, and that it's a big morale booster. It's a big team building booster. And if they lose that game and they just say, okay, we just can't beat good competition, I just think that could be as early in the season, as early as pivotal an early season game as you can get, I think is going to be that one.
All right, let's talk a couple other things here. Not necessarily about basketball, but we'll go just sports in general. Relative to expectations, Blair, I'll start with you. This is shaping up to be the most disappointing season for Arizona athletics in recent memory. And I think part of that, you saw the volleyball team, probably the best team on campus, does everything they can, win 7 games in a row or 7 matches in a row, misses the tournament.
Yeah.
And you're like, the women's basketball team goes in this tournament and they play like garbage, and they're not a tournament. I mean, they're not even close to a tournament team. Right. They're not, but then they go like they're not a tournament team. So Blair, would you say in recent memory, this is about shaping up to be about as disappointing as it gets?
Well, I mean, I think most of the time we make these decisions based off how football and men's basketball does. Football, obviously, kind of gets an F in that, grade. Basketball right now is probably in the D category, but certainly plenty of room to improve that grade throughout the year. So I think much of how we feel about this sports year will be decided on how men's basketball does. Volleyball showed improvement this year. They didn't get in the NCAA tournament. That's disappointing, but they did improve. The women's soccer team improved significantly as well. That program could be on the path to kind of getting back to where it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Triathlon won the national championship. I think got to talk about that a few weeks ago. So we'll see. The spring sports, I think baseball's feeling really good about what they have. I think they've got a really good lineup, and everything I've heard kind of behind the scenes, they feel like they've got some big time pitching prospects finally in here, something they haven't had for a few years. Softball, we'll see where they are. But again, I'll just go back to it. I think Eric, and we just spent a few minutes talking about the men's basketball team, what this thing looks like here as we round out the 2024 year and turn it the calendar to 2025 in a few weeks. It's a lot of this, how we feel about this year is going to be contingent upon what Tommy Lloyd and the Cats do.
Yeah, and someone else did mention on social media that they mentioned the 2003-04 season, because for a long time there, I want to say like almost 20 years in a row, Arizona was never lower in men's basketball, never lower than a 5 seed in the NCAA tournament, and they were 1 or 2 more often than not. That year they were an 8, I believe. This year they had Andre Iguodala and some other talent. And they were an 8 seed, and they lost in the first round, I think, to Seton Hall, if I remember right. So that was disappointing. I think back to 2017-18 as well. Arizona had a great start to the season. Or was it? I think it was 2017-18. A great start to the season. And then, the collapse against ASU with Kulte gets hurt. I remember and then ASU men's basketball. I remember they showed the men's basketball team on the big screen in Tempe after ASU made the big comeback during the football game, and they were holding up a trophy from whatever in-season tournament they won. They started off great. Now Arizona ended their winning streak and beat them both times, but then of course that year, or by then, I think it was that the Brooke Richardson stuff came out, and we thought, okay, this could be the death of Arizona men's basketball for the foreseeable future. And then they go and lose in the first round of the NCAA tournament with DeAndre Ayton. So I would just, in terms of relative to expectations, I think that might have even been worse. 03-04 was up there, 17-18 was up there. And again, I put a giant asterisk on 2020-21 because of the pandemic.
But see, I think part of it too, Shane, is the fact that ASU's football team is doing what they're doing now. They had no expectations, and the fact that they're probably going to the college football playoff. We'll make our picks.
They have what we had last year, and it's
but it's even better. I mean, they won. They've already won 10 games. They went 10-2. Now, they didn't play nearly as difficult a schedule as Arizona played last year. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Arizona beat, what, 5 or 6 ranked teams. ASU beat 2 or 3 and teams that didn't end up being that great. I mean, Utah was one of them, wasn't very good. BYU faded, but I mean, still, BYU went 10-2, something like that. So, I mean, it's a heck of a win. So yeah, I think that's part of it. I want to throw a hypothetical one out there. I was talking with my buddy Steve about this one. If you could be in one conference right now, all things being the same, finances, TV money, everything like that, just based on the opponents that you would play, would you rather be where Stanford and Cal are in the ACC, or would you rather be in the Big 12? Blair, we'll start with you.
I mean, the Big 12 is where I would want to be. I mean, I was reading I was on Twitter or X reading my timeline earlier this afternoon, and I saw an update from Kendall Rogers, who covers college baseball, and he had an update on Cal baseball and an interview with their head coach Mike New, and I thought, it just dawned on me, Cal baseball is in the ACC. like the ACC is a great baseball league. The Pac-12 was a great baseball league.
It was.
We always think of it in terms of like football and men's basketball, what these leagues are, but like West Coast baseball, Pac-12 baseball, going all the way back to the Pac-6 days, the six-pack days. I mean, it's a great league. Cal baseball is now playing in the ACC for, like, they're going to be playing North Carolina in baseball. Stanford baseball, like, that just blows my mind when we think of it in those 10. Softball, think UCLA softball. UCLA softball is going to be playing Big Ten softball for the year.
But
I want to be in the Big 12 personally, because it's not quite what the Pac-12 used to be, but it's not so disconnected from what the ACC footprint is and where those teams are.
It would be like the pro equivalent of like the Golden State Warriors and Sacramento Kings joining the Eastern Conference. It just makes absolutely no sense.
But hold on a second. I'm just talking about it. Like, who are you going to get more excited about the opponents coming to Arizona Stadium? Miami, Florida State, Clemson, or anyone in the Big 12? Yeah. And it's not even comparable. And in basketball,
I think Duke, I think Virginia Tech, it'd be fun to go to Virginia Tech. I'm not necessarily going to get excited.
You got to go to West Virginia. I mean, I'd rather go to Virginia Tech than West Virginia.
Yeah, but there's only a handful of teams in the East Coast on the Big. I mean, I don't like the realignment at all. I think it's so stupid.
Yeah.
But to Blair's point, I think, and we haven't even gotten to the Big 12 play in men's basketball yet, which I'm still excited about, despite Arizona's early season struggles. Long term,
wouldn't you want to have Arizona at Duke, Arizona, North Carolina every year? I mean, would sign me up in basketball. Fine football,
basketball, too. Sure, but we got Kansas, we got Baylor, we got
right.
I mean,
but there's no football opponent.
State.
As far as I'm concerned, there's no football opponent in the Big 12 that is comparable to the top end of the ACC. And that's why, for me, if all things were equal, this is a pure hypothetical. Yeah. I know the geography makes no sense.
No.
I would do it in a heartbeat.
No. And I don't, there's two teams. I mean, Florida State and Clemson are the only ones that even jump out. And Miami, I mean, going to Miami, if you play like a noon Eastern game at Miami, that's like going to Stanford and playing a 4 o'clock.
Who sells more tickets? Who sells more tickets for opponents? Anyone in the Big 12 or the top end? If Clemson was coming to Arizona Stadium, if Florida State was coming to Arizona Stadium, that'd be huge.
You'd probably see a bunch of Florida State fans at that game.
Yeah, I think I don't even know. I mean, Clemson's not what they were 5 years ago. I don't even. I mean, I don't even know we get 45,000 if Clemson had showed up back in October, when we're coming off that Utah win. I just don't. Yeah. Eric, we need people excited about us, not necessarily the opponent.
Right, Eric. I thought you wanted Arizona to go to the Big Ten. What's this ACC stuff about?
No, I do. I do. I don't think Arizona's getting a Big Ten invite just yet. I'm just saying hypothetical. This is a pure hypothetical. There's no rumors of it or anything like that. It was just a question that we had. If you could have one or the other, all things being equal, TV money, this, that, and the other, everything equal, expenses equal, who would you rather have? The Big 12 or the ACC? And to me, the answer was clear, the ACC. You guys disagree with me on that one. That's fine.
But to your point, though, the Big Ten, though, I mean, if you're wanting to get fans excited about, if you want to get fans excited about football, then the Big Ten.
Oh, I'm telling you what, if Arizona ever had a chance to go to the Big Ten, they would not think twice. If the Big Ten, if we see these 2014 conferences, I don't know that they would ever want Arizona at this point. But if they, I mean, you probably have to win a national title in basketball to get their attention at this point. Other than that,
we would not have trouble selling tickets. Arizona and Arizona State, we would have plenty of Big Ten fans in the state, especially from October 1st onward.
This is big. This is Big Ten country. You know, if you go to any Cardinals game, whenever they play, and you remember Arizona, Iowa in 2010. The whole it was a great atmosphere. I was there, but almost the entire upper section was gold. Arizona is the state of Arizona is Big Ten country. You got a lot of people from the Midwest who live here, and then for 30, 40 years, but still root for their home teams.
I just a hypothetical, would love the Big Ten, but this was playing ACC versus Big 12. Thought we'd have a little bit of fun with it. Coming up next, let's make picks. Go Iowa State, or are we going ASU here in the Big 12 championship game? Find out next here on Wildcat Country.
Discover more Play for All at Harrah's Auction Casino.
Hi, folks. Here are your drinks.
Where having fun means racking up reward credits with the Caesars Rewards loyalty program that can be redeemed for food, free play, hotel stays, and more. Not only here in the city of Maricopa, but also at more than 50 Caesars properties coast to coast. From Harrah's Las Vegas to Caesars Palace in Atlantic City. What are you waiting for? Play for All at Harrah's Auction Casino, the official sponsor of Play.
It's the final segment of Wildcat Country. We don't have an Arizona game to pick. Probably a good thing because Shane and I would have picked against them. The bye week 28, Arizona 7. I think we all can agree that probably would have been the case.
Best case scenario.
Sorry, but I mean that's what this is. This is what this has come to. We're not picking Arizona Southern Utah for basketball. We'll save that for UCLA next week. Let's go college football. It is championship week. We are going to pick 5 championship games, not including Western Kentucky and Jacksonville State. Go Rich Rod. And then if you want to go take the West Virginia job after that, it'd be fun to see Rich Rod at Arizona in a few years. That game I would go to. All right, upset special time. Shane, I am up 6 on you. I did not hit it outright, my upset special outright last week, but I got a point for it with Fresno State getting points at UCLA. I am going Marshall plus 5.5 at Louisiana in I think it is the Sun Belt Championship game. Marshall's 11-1 against the spread this season. They're the best team in the country against the spread. I believe ASU is number 2, Shane. So keep that in mind for your picks, but I'm going Marshall getting 5.5. I think they can win that game outright. Who you got?
I am going to go with Army over Tulane just because I'm a patriotic guy. I was just disappointed by Army's performance against Notre Dame, but I'm going to take them to win. They're a 6-point dog. I'm going to take them to win outright.
Oh, see, I like Tulane to cover in that game. All right, Blair, who you got?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure if we're picking this game or not, but I'm going to take UNLV over Boise State.
Okay.
That is my outright win there.
All right. I like that.
It would be good news for the winner of the Big 12 championship game because they'd likely get to host or get a bye if Boise State falls, right?
Yeah, Boise State's a 4-point favorite. We were going to pick that game. There you go. So you just did 2 and 1. I'm good with that. All right, Shane. What's your pick? Boise State at home is a 4-point favorite against UNLV. Kind of a weird line. You think they would be favored by more?
Yeah, it's one of those Vegas knows something we don't. But I'm going to go with Boise anyway, just because. I mean, number one, if ASU does happen to beat Iowa State, I don't want them to get a top 4 slot in a bye. But no, I mean, Boise State, that 3-point loss to Oregon just keeps looking better and better, even though Oregon wasn't playing good football early in the year. And UNLV, it's a great story, being able to continue the way they have with their quarterback abandoning them. But I'm going to take Boise.
The last time UNLV beat Boise State was 1976. Boise State, I believe, has won 8 in a row in this series. They won 29-24 earlier this year in Vegas. Last year in the championship game, they won by 24. So you're taking Boise State. I'm going to take Boise State as well here to cover that line. All right, let's talk about upset, Shane, that could help ASU. I think Clemson, who has no business being in this game.
Yeah.
They're a 2.5-point favorite against SMU, who has 1 loss all year. That 1 loss was a home loss to BYU. I think Clemson. Dabo Swinney is 8-1 in conference championship games, won 8 in a row. I think they win the game outright, and that means the winner of the Big 12 potentially could get a first-round bye. So I'm going Clemson in that game. Blair, who you got?
Yeah, I'm going to take Clemson as well. I kind of, way back at the beginning of the season or in August, I had Clemson in my playoff, and I thought Cade Klubnik would have a better year. He has had a better year. Clemson's still not really an elite team. They're not back to where they were several years ago. I think they'll put something together this week. SMU not quite ready to break through.
Shane?
Yeah, we have to talk about my preseason CFP picks.
Yeah, I don't know if we're talking
at
about
least
that.
three of
Yeah,
them
yeah.
finished below 500. But yeah, unfortunately, I hope I'm wrong, but I agree with you guys. I think Clemson takes it. I think that they're a little more tested this year. SMU would be a great story, but I think Clemson steals it from them, and it's gonna be sad. But I think that's
How
what
about
happens.
how about Oregon -3.5 against Penn State in the Big Ten championship game? I'm gonna save my pick for a second. Blair, I'll let you go first on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to take Oregon to cover
Okay.
that spread. I still, until James Franklin gets over the hump in one of these big games, I can't pick Penn State. They just always seem to come up short and just kind of they can't finish drives. They don't score enough points when they get into these big games with Ohio State or Michigan in past years. So I think Oregon's going to be able to score enough on them. It is a good Penn State team, but I think Oregon will find enough ways to find the end zone and edge out Penn State.
Shane.
Another weird line, isn't it? And for the reason Blair mentioned, and like I told you a few weeks ago, Eric, you've sold me on James Franklin's complete inability to win big games. So it's kind of that versus the fishy line. And I was actually, as much as I enjoyed the Michigan upset over Ohio State, I was kind of sad because I was hoping to see an Ohio State Oregon rematch.
I was too.
I
Yeah.
was looking forward to that. Maybe we'll still get one. But I got to go with Oregon. I haven't seen anything from Penn State that would suggest that they'll have any chance to beat one of the best teams, maybe the best team in the country.
Guys, I have a weird feeling about this game, and it's not like an overly confident one. I think Penn State wins this game outright.
Hmm.
There's something, it's not Ohio State, it's not Michigan. James Franklin, Oregon, comes in overconfident. Dan Lanning, they should have won that Pac-12 championship game last year against Washington, and they kind of choked and got outplayed by the Huskies, who then ended up in the national championship game. I think Penn State finds a way to win this game, and it would send Oregon to the number 5 seed and potentially a chance, maybe Oregon ASU in the Fiesta Bowl if it comes to that. So just throwing that one out there. All right, how about the SEC championship game? Can Texas get some revenge on Georgia? Texas 2.5-point favorite in this one. I think the Longhorns get it done. I think Georgia, had no business winning that game against Georgia Tech last week. 8 overtimes with SEC officials clearly on their side.
And can we all
Give me
agree
Texas.
how ridiculous the format this is? The 2-point
It's
conversion.
so bad. It's
with
so
each
bad.
team getting a timeout. It's like we want to speed this up, and we're going to give a team. I was watching it with my wife, who does no interest in football whatsoever, and she kept asking, "Why do they keep getting timeouts if we want to make it fast?" Anyway,
It's so bad. It's so bad. Okay, so I like Texas to win this game. Who you got, Shane?
I'm going to go with Georgia. They handled Texas pretty easily last time. I think it's just about a matter of matchups. I think it's one of those situations where Texas is probably, overall a better team, but Georgia just matches up very well with the Longhorns. So I'm going to take Georgia.
Blair.
Yeah, I'm going to take Texas. I think I picked Georgia the first time around. Felt good about it, but Georgia's been inconsistent. They're not as dominant as they used to be, and I think Texas has some flaws too. But revenge game here. I'll take Texas.
And finally, the Big 12 championship game. I can't believe this is happening. It is an absolute nightmare for all Arizona fans. Arizona State is a 2.5-point favorite against Iowa State. And I hate to say it, guys, ASU's going to win this game, and they're going to get a bye, and we're never going to hear the end of it. It is an absolute nightmare. We are all praying for the Cyclones. I don't think it's going to happen. All right, Blair, what do you think? Am I right or wrong on this one?
Well, it's going to be a good matchup. I mean, they're two, they had two similar type of seasons. It feels like ASU losing their wide receiver Tyson for this game. That's a big loss. He was a playmaker, sort of like how T-Mac has been a playmaker for Arizona on the outside. What impressed me seeing Tyson in person last week before he got hurt is how physical he is. He's a great blocker on the edge. I think that negates a little bit about what ASU can do on the perimeter, extending that run game away from Scadaboo. I mean, Scadaboo's a beast. And Iowa State's had a little bit of trouble stopping the run this year. ASU played its best game of the season last week. I mean, they were really complete last week. Sometimes it's hard to duplicate that back-to-back weeks. Iowa State has been clawing at a Big 12 title for a number of years. Matt Campbell's done a great job there. Had a rough year 2 years ago. battled back a little bit last year. They've broken through to the Big 12 title game this year. I think the Cyclones find a way to win this one, but it's close. I think it's very close, but I think the Cyclones are able to pull it out because ASU doesn't have that big play threat offensively on the outside.
All right, Shane, you're the tiebreaker here. I mean, I hope Blair's right. I would love to be wrong here. Which way do you lean?
Yeah, I picked ASU more often than not this season, but and Blair makes a very good point. I think best case scenario for ASU, worst case for Arizona fans is ASU could get as high as the number 3 overall seed if everything goes a certain way.
Yeah,
UNLV beats Boise State, Clemson beats SMU, ASU wins. They could get as high as a 3 seed. With that said, I actually agree with Blair. I think Iowa State wins a close game, mainly because, Iowa State's got the best defense in the conference. They're number 1 or top 2 or 3 in just about every metric. And I think that matters this time of year. I think they figured it out after a couple of close losses earlier in the year. And you could argue that this is the best team ASU's faced this year. BYU was definitely very, very good team, but that game came down to the last second, literally a couple of yards, literally the last second. And it'll be interesting to see what the how the home field advantage plays out for either team. It's going to be in Texas, right? So it's going to be kind of between both schools. Which fans are going to travel a bit better. Iowa State fans have been clamoring for this for as long as any of them can remember. I'm sure a lot of them are going to make it their way there. I'm sure a lot of ASU fans will too, but I think Iowa State might have a bit of a home field edge. All of those things, and I think it's going to be it might be the best conference game of the weekend in terms of just how competitive it is, but I'm leaning Iowa State to win.
We are all Cyclones this weekend. We need some good news because it's been rough. Hey, just if you're kind of feeling down about anything Arizona related, just think back to where we were a year ago and how great it was.
Pull up the videos on YouTube. Just look away look away when they show Jed Fish on screen.
It's okay. You know what? For what Jed did and was able to bring to this program, I know he kind of ruined it by leaving, but
we appreciate the heck out of him now, don't we? Yeah.
I would say so. Blair, thank you so much for coming on with Shane and I. Great to have you for the whole show and great perspective. It's good discussion to go over it. I know that people who are listening to this or watching us are going to agree with some things that we said and hate some of the other things that we said, but that's what makes this show so much fun. Love doing it. Thanks to our sponsors, Ice Shaker and, of course, Harrah's Auction Casino. So for Blair Willis and Shane Dale, I'm Eric Cohen. Thanks for listening. And as always, bear down.